Did you know that Megumi was a bully? Or that Gojo was the strongest in the entire world even as just a little kid? Well, today we're breaking down every single backstory in Jujutsu Kaisen. And we, of course, gotta start with the backstory of Megumi Fushiguro. Now, Megumi was born on December 22nd, 2002 to Toji Fushiguro and his mother, who sadly died right after he was born. Later on though, when Megumi was in elementary school, Toji remarried with Tsumiki's mom. But he really didn't care about Megumi, so he literally just abandoned all of them to go live his own life as a hired assassin. And Megumi, he doesn't even remember what his dad looked like. Then, after Toji got paid a huge amount of money for taking out the Star Plasma Vessel, he ended up getting killed by Gojo. And Tsumiki's mom? Well, she took almost all of that money and left Megumi and Tsumiki behind with almost nothing. So now, these two kids were living on their own. But right before completely running out of money, Satoru Gojo found Megumi. And instead of letting Megumi get dragged into the Zenin clan, Gojo stepped in and arranged for Jujutsu High to support both Megumi and Tsumiki. So yep, Gojo basically became their benefactor and took care of them, even though Megumi always thought he was a really weird guy. Anyway, Gojo started training Megumi and took him on missions. Like that one time he saved this little girl. Megumi and Tsumiki then went to Saitama Umami East Junior High, where he always got into fights. Yeah, he beat up every single delinquent at the school and literally became their god. Though Tsumiki always scolded him for being reckless. Then after graduating, Megumi joins Jujutsu High and becomes a Jujutsu sorcerer to protect people and save Tsumiki, who unfortunately became cursed. Talking about the backstory of Megumi, we have to talk about Yuji Itadori too. Yuji was born to Jin and Kari Itadori, or, well, Kenjaku. Yep, Kenjaku took over the body of Kari Itadori after she died, and he was the one who gave birth to Yuji. Crazy, right? Not only that though, but Kenjaku also sealed one of Sukuna's fingers inside of him from birth. That means that the finger he ate in episode 1 is actually not the first finger in his body. That also explains why Yuji has always been insanely strong, literally crushing the shot put world record on his first try and being ridiculously fast. Anyway, growing up, Yuji was mostly raised by his grandfather, Wasuke, who was basically his father figure. He also had a pretty normal life in Sendai, went to middle school, went to high school, and even joined the occult club just to hang out with Sasaki and Iguchi instead of doing sports, even though he was obviously insanely athletic. I mean, the school coach even tried to force him onto the track team, but Yuji beat him in a shot put challenge so he could stay in the club. But then everything changes after his grandpa passes away, and Megumi shows up looking for Sukuna's finger, which Yuji realizes his friends accidentally took to school. And remembering his grandfather's last words about helping others, Yuji jumps in to save them from a cursed spirit. But, cornered and desperate, he swallows Sukuna's finger to gain power. Although, yeah, that made Sukuna take control over his body. Well, until Yuji actually regains control, proving he can actually contain him. After Gojo then shows up and knocks him out, Gojo explains the plan, which is to have Yuji eat all of Sukuna's fingers and then get executed to erase Sukuna for good. And Yuji, he actually agrees to the plan, deciding that if he can save people along the way, it's worth it. And just like that, Yuji Itadori becomes the newest first-year student at Tokyo Jujutsu High. Moving on, we've got Nobara Kugisaki. Nobara grew up in a tiny countryside village and she absolutely hated it. Yeah, she literally felt eerie about her hometown, and she had zero freedom or privacy, so she naturally became a little rebel, especially at school. Anyway, back in first grade, she met Fumi, and after helping her return her backpack from some bullies and, well, beating them up, they became best friends, and she would always go to her house and play Smash Bros. Then one day, a girl named Saori moved into the village with her family from Tokyo, and Nobara literally idolized her. Yeah, Saori was stylish, kind, and just different from everyone else in the town. So Nobara and Fumi started visiting her all the time, trying foods they'd never even heard of before. And Nobara even started acting more mature and feminine because she wanted to be just like Saori. However, the villagers treated Saori and her family like outsiders and eventually pushed them out of town, and that completely crushed Nobara. Yeah, she cried harder than ever, and ended up hating the village even more. From that point on, Nobara just wanted to move out of the town that stopped her from being herself, and she dreamed of moving to Tokyo, the city Saori was from. Before she could move though, she worked under her grandmother who was a Jujutsu sorcerer who trained her and let her go on curse hunting missions around the town. Then Nobara got invited to attend Tokyo Jujutsu High, making her dream come true. Plus, she hoped that she one day might run into Sari again. Next up, let's talk about Yuta Okkotsu. When Yuta was just a little kid, he met Rika Orimoto in the hospital, and they instantly became best friends. Yeah, Rika cared about Yuta so much that she even gave him a promise ring, saying they'd get married when they grow up. But right after that though, Rika got hit by a car and tragically died. But when Yuta saw her, he accidentally said her name, which subconsciously cursed her soul to remain with him and turn into a vengeful cursed spirit. So for the next 5 years, Rika haunted him, and anyone who tried to hurt him ended up seriously hurt. So because of this, Yuta started isolating himself so nobody would get hurt. But that made Yuta become a target for bullying. So on November 2016, when some students were bullying Yuta, they were brutally hurt by Rika. And that incident caught the attention of Jujutsu High, who realized Yuta was bound to a special grade curse, and decided he needed to be executed. And the crazy part? Yuta actually agreed. Yeah, he even tried to end his own life, but Rika stopped him. Luckily, Gojo stepped in, got his execution postponed, and brought Yuta to Jujutsu High instead, telling Yuta that he could learn to control the curse and use his power to help people. So that's exactly what Yuta does. He joins Jujutsu High as a student and works super hard every single day. Talking about Yuta, it's only right we talk about Maki and Mai Zenin. These two are twins born into the Zenin clan, and daughters of Ogi Zenin and an unnamed mother. And honestly, they never stood a chance of having a good life. Not only were twins seen as a bad omen, but they were disrespected for being women, and they both had really low cursed energy. I mean, Maki didn't even have enough to see curses or use techniques, so their father straight up hated them. But Maki and Mai, they were best friends and loved each other. And as Mai was terrified of curses, she always relied on her sister to protect her. Since Maki didn't have an innate technique though, she had to join the Kukuru unit, where all members go through grueling martial arts training day and night. However, as they were women, the clan expected them to just look pretty and become servants. And Mai accepted to become a servant, but Maki, she refused. She wanted to get stronger and eventually become the head of the Zenin clan, just to prove them all wrong. So she left and joined Jujutsu High. But from Mai's perspective, Maki didn't just leave the clan, she left her behind. So Mai felt abandoned, especially since she was still stuck dealing with both curses and the cruelty of the clan, including abuse from Naoya. To make things worse, Mai was forced to become a Jujutsu sorcerer, fight curses, and enroll in Kyoto Jujutsu High, which made her hate Maki even more. But moving on from Maki and Mai, we've got Toge Inumaki. And well, we don't know much about his past except that he was born into the Inumaki clan on October 31st, 2001, and inherited the powerful cursed speech technique. And since his words can literally curse people, he had to come up with a way to talk without hurting anyone, which is why he only speaks using rice ball ingredients. And yeah, somehow Maki, Yuta, and some of the others actually understand what he's saying. Anyway, he enrolled in Tokyo Jujutsu High as a member from the Inumaki clan to become stronger. Moving on, we've got Panda. And yeah, Panda obviously isn't a normal panda. He's an abrupt mutation cursed corpse that was created by Yaga. And Panda is his ultimate masterpiece, as Panda is literally a full-on person with emotions, feelings, personality, and will of his own. Since the day he was born, Yaga raised him like his own son, and they trained together every single day so Panda could fight curses using nothing but pure physical strength. And the reason Panda is so strong is because he's actually got 3 cores inside of him: his own, his brother's, and his sister's, which lets him switch forms and boost his power. Now I know we see Panda and his siblings play together, but that actually wasn't a flashback. That was more like showing the bond between the souls living inside of Panda. Anyway, Panda then obviously joined Jujutsu High since the principal is literally his father. Another Jujutsu High student we gotta talk about is Kinji Hakari. And the only thing we know about this guy's backstory is that he's always been really dumb and got super bad grades in school. I mean, he even had to repeat a year in junior high before eventually making it to Jujutsu High. And here's a fun bonus fact. Hakari straight up beat up some of the Jujutsu higher-ups, which got him suspended, and that's when he started his own underground fight club. Talking about Hakari, we obviously gotta talk about Kirara. But sorry guys, we literally know nothing about Kirara's backstory, other than that Kirara obviously became obsessed with Hakari, and even left school after his suspension just to help him run the underground fight club. Now, let's talk about Kokichi Muta, aka Mekamaru. Kokichi was born with a heavenly restriction that completely wrecked his body from birth. I mean, he was literally born without his right arm. He couldn't walk, he lived in constant pain, and he couldn't even handle sun or moonlight without burning himself. He just sat in a bathtub with tubes every single day. However, in exchange for his wrecked body, he got an insane amount of cursed energy, and he could control puppets with his puppet manipulation technique from super far away, which is why Jujutsu High took custody of him when he was still just a kid. His parents even believed he had died, which is actually what Kokichi wanted. But as he couldn't physically go to Jujutsu High, he built Ultimate Mechamaru, a puppet he controlled with his puppet manipulation technique and used it to attend Kyoto Jujutsu High like a normal student. Although he said he'd give back every ounce of cursed energy to just have a normal body. So yeah, the whole reason he betrayed Jujutsu High was because he just wanted a normal body and a normal life. And maybe a chance to be with Miwa too. Talking about Kazumi Miwa, she's up next. Miwa grew up in a pretty poor family with 2 little brothers. She was actually also the captain of her junior high basketball team and super athletic. And her mom even dyed her hair black because she thought Miwa's natural blue hair was unusual. However, her life completely changed when she met Kusakabe in junior high, as he noticed her athletic ability and gave her the chance to become a Jujutsu sorcerer. Why did she want to become a Jujutsu sorcerer though? Well, because she wanted to earn money and help support her family. So despite having no curse technique and never even held a sword before, she trained super hard in the new shadow style under Kusakabe, all so she could finally become independent and stop being a burden to her family. Next up, we've got the idol-loving sorcerer Aoi Todo. And yeah, this guy has always been insanely strong. Like when he was only in 3rd grade, he literally beat up a high schooler just for talking trash about him. But here's the thing, Todo thought everything was boring. Even beating up boring people didn't excite him at all. But everything changed the day he met Yuki Tsukumo, as after she asked him what his type of woman was, boom! Todo instantly felt like she could cure his boredom. So Yuki actually became Todo's mentor, and she trained him in Jujutsu and helped him become ridiculously strong. And because of Yuki asking him what type of woman he was into, that's when he realized that Takada-chan was the literal perfect woman. Yeah, he became obsessed with her and literally her #1 fan. He then of course joined Jujutsu High, and he hoped to find people who also had good taste in women, like Yuji. Another Kyoto sorcerer we gotta talk about is Noritoshi Kamo. Noritoshi was born to the head of the Kamo clan and an unnamed mother. However, even though he was named after a disgraced member of the family, he was accepted into the clan and raised as the future heir. But his mother, she was treated terribly, since she was just one of many mistresses of the clan head, and eventually she was pushed out of the family entirely. But Noritoshi loved his mother and begged for her to stay, but that didn't work. Before leaving though, she told him to stay with the Kamo clan and become a sorcerer who helps people. And Noritoshi promised he'd one day create a home for his mom in the clan. Anyway, Noritoshi stayed and trained super hard to become the next clan head. And because of that, he grew into a serious, stoic guy who puts the clan's values above everything. He then eventually joined Jujutsu High to sharpen his skills and prepare for the role he was expected to inherit. Now, we're moving on to Momo Nishimiya. And well, we literally don't know anything about her backstory other than that her father is an American and a Jujutsu sorcerer, which is super rare. But yeah, she eventually enrolled in Kyoto Jujutsu High, and yep, that's all we know. Now, we're technically done with all Jujutsu High students, but let's talk about some former students as well. And first up, we obviously gotta talk about everyone's favorite, Satoru Gojo. Gojo was born on December 7th, 1989, and he was the first person in around 400 years to inherit both the Limitless technique and the 6 Eyes. And after he was born, the balance of power shifted in the Jujutsu world. He even had a 100 million bounty on his head as a kid, but good luck trying to take this kid out. Yeah, Kid Gojo literally made people stop committing crimes as they were terrified of Gojo killing them. That said, being so insanely powerful made Gojo grow up feeling lonely and trapped by his clan's expectations, which is actually why he joined Jujutsu High. Yep, he was fed up with his overbearing family, so he joined Jujutsu High to have some freedom and to have fun. That's why people think Gojo is way too much and super annoying, as Gojo's personality flipped from a quiet, reserved kid into the goofy, cocky, freedom-loving Gojo we know now. But that's not the only reason he joined Jujutsu High, it's also because Gojo thought the Jujutsu world was corrupt and outdated, and instead dreamed of raising a new generation of sorcerers strong enough to tear it down and rebuild it properly. Talking about Gojo, we obviously gotta talk about Suguru Geto. Now, Geto joined Jujutsu High as a cursed spirit manipulation user to save innocent people from being hurt by curses. And he absolutely loved his time at Jujutsu High, especially with his best friend Gojo. But after Geto realized how it's the Jujutsu sorcerers who go through all the pain and suffering to fight curses, even though it's non-sorcerers that are responsible for creating these monsters, he came up with the plan to kill all non-sorcerers in the world. Yep. The breaking point for Geto was after he was sent on a mission to a village where, even after he saved everyone from the curse, the villagers wanted him to kill 2 young sorcerer girls. And that's when Geto snapped and wiped out the entire village in one night. After that, there was no going back. So he took the girls with him, killed his own parents, got expelled from Jujutsu High, and became known as the worst curse user alive. When he then later met Gojo again in Shinjuku, he revealed his plan to him, and just like that, Gojo's best ever friend became one of the biggest villains ever. Okay, that was a bit more than just a backstory, but alright, let's just move on to Kento Nanami. Although, well, we don't know anything before he joined Jujutsu High as a student. But while he was a student there, he became best friends with Yu Haibara. However, one day on a mission, things went horribly wrong, and Haibara ended up dying. And that moment hit Nanami hard. Still, he finished his time at Jujutsu High, but after graduating, he quit the whole thing because, to him, being a Jujutsu sorcerer just felt like constant suffering. So instead, he became a regular office worker. Problem was, that job was just as empty. It was all about money and no real meaning in life. But after helping a bakery owner deal with a cursed spirit and seeing how grateful she was, Nanami realized helping people as a sorcerer actually mattered. So he quit the corporate life and returned to being a sorcerer, as he'd rather fight curses and make a real difference again. Now, we gotta talk about Kiyotaka Iichi. Yep, Iichi was actually a student at Jujutsu High, but back when he was just a first year, Gojo straight up told him he should not try to be a Jujutsu sorcerer because he was just too weak, and instead he should get a driver's license. And although that obviously hurt, Iichi actually did decide to become an assistant manager instead of a sorcerer. So after graduating, he became an assistant manager at Jujutsu High, and now he's out here driving everyone to where they need to go. Another former student we gotta talk about is Yaga. But what we really need to talk about is after he graduated from Jujutsu High, because that's when he creates Panda, an abrupt mutation cursed corpse that's self-aware and can generate its own cursed energy. And yeah, that immediately freaked out the higher-ups, because if Yaga could mass-produce things like Panda, he could technically create an entire army. So they locked him up and even considered labeling him special grade and keeping him restrained forever. However, when Gakuganji questioned him about it, Yaga said he didn't actually know how to intentionally recreate something like Panda, so they eventually let him go. After that, he returned to Tokyo Jujutsu High as a teacher for the second years, where he had to deal with Gojo, and later, he even became the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Now sorry, but we basically don't know anything about the backstory of Kusakabe, other than that he's always been insanely strong with his sword. Then we've got Hakari Nida and her younger brother Arata Nida, and we only know that they were born to non-sorcerer parents, but unlike Arata, Hakari doesn't have a curse technique and can barely even see curses. So instead of becoming a fighter, she joined Kyoto Jujutsu High as an assistant manager to support sorcerers, and especially to keep an eye on her little brother. And Arata, he chose to help people with his healing skills, since healing abilities are super rare among Jujutsu sorcerers, so his medical knowledge and first aid skills make him very valuable on missions. Then Utahime, Mei, and Shoko, nothing. Yep, we know nothing. Anyway, who had the worst backstory in Jujutsu Kaisen? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.